How's it going again, Guardians? LVnative here with another Destiny video. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the patch notes for this latest June update, aka the Hunter Killer, as I keep hearing everyone say. Now, some of you may or may not already know this, but a Hunter is what I primarily main, and yes, they had quite a few changes in this patch, but other classes had a few changes, as well as some weapons as well. So there's a lot to get into. Let's go ahead and start. Now, all these images that I'm going to be showing you are directly captured off of the Bungie patch notes, right off of their website. So bear with me. You're not going to see a lot of gameplay in the background. It's just going to be me going down this list of all their patch notes and telling you my thoughts on them. So let's get started. So, starting off with the Titan, the Sunbreaker class, a super with the Hammer of Soul. Your hammer travel speed is now increased by 1.3%, and the hammer detonation radius is increased by 10%. Also, damage is increased by 10% against AI combatants, aka the PvE. So, it's, your hammer's going to travel a little faster, and the explosions are going to be a little bit larger. I think that's going to be a nice improvement on the PvP side of things, for the Hammer of Soul. It's going to be a little more consistent as far as your hit detection, hopefully, is what that turns into. And it's also going to have a little bit extra damage against, in PvE, against, computer opponents. Should be nice. Your Striker, your Fist of Havoc, the base damage is increased by 50% and an additional 50% against AI combatants. I'm noticing that across the board with the supers. They're going to be doing a lot more damage in PvE. It'll make them a lot more viable for people to, decide to start using them. Same thing here with the Fist of Havoc. With the base damage increase of 50%, I don't know if there was really anything that could survive a Fist of Havoc, but there won't be now. Regardless of if you're in the middle of your super or anything, that should take care of things. If you get hit with that Fist of Havoc, you're done. You will not be able to survive it, I don't think. For the Defender, the grenades, the spike grenade damage impulses per second is reduced to 5 from 10, but the spike grenade damage per impulse increases by 100%. So the total amount of damage is going to be unchanged. It's just going to do it in a much quicker time. I think that is a good change for that spike grenade. I never used it much anyway. Maybe it'll get a little bit more use now because, when you hit somebody with it or when they walk into that field, they're going to be taking a lot more damage, per tick. But it's going to be doled out in 5 little ticks instead of 10. So it's, you'll be able to damage people a lot quicker with it. It just won't last quite as long for, territorial control or anything. Okay, so now we get into the meat of this with all the changes to the Hunter. There's a lot of them to go over, so let's start with the Gunslinger. For your grenades, your Swarm Grenade increased arming radius by 0.5 meters. The Swarm Grenade detonation damage is increased by 7%. What's that? It may or may not make the Swarm Grenade viable. I honestly cannot remember the last time I ever used my Swarm Grenade because there were so many better options, aka the Trip Mine. We'll get into that one in a second. But with it, with that detonation, arming radius being increased by 0.5 meter and the damage being increased by 7%, I'm going to have to toy around with that. I think it is a nice change. It may make that Swarm Grenade viable. It's just hasn't really been that useful in the past, so most people never used it. With your Trip Mine Grenade, it no longer attaches to the targets. Sorry, no more stick around medals in PvP when you throw that Trip Mine and hit them in the head. It arms on impact and then bounces and then attaches to whatever terrain it lands on. The Trip Mine damage is reduced by 3%. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but what that is going to do is actually cause it to not one-shot kill a lot of Guardians if they're at full health. That is going to really, put a damper on some things for people who love to use their trip mines. You can put it in the perfect place and wait, 10, 15 seconds and someone goes through and hits it. It might just severely weaken them but not actually give you the kill. Again, it's going to need a little bit more playtesting, but I think the numbers that I saw somebody running was with that 3% drop off in damage, it's going to allow people to survive it a lot of times. The Golden Gun, this is kind of an interesting one. The base damage has been increased by 50% and an additional 30% against AI combatants, kind of like with the Fist of Havoc. What that's going to mean is there's going to be no more Titans, tanking a golden gun shot if, they're in their Hammer of Soul or their Striker getting ready to hit you with the Fist of Havoc. If you pop them with that gun, I believe with that extra 50% damage, it will kill them. And again, the additional 30% increase against AI. I think this is going to be a really cool thing to run now against, even raid bosses, and strike bosses with the Celestial Nighthawk to get that extra damage in one shot. Because it's going to be doing now a total of another 50% and a 30% on top of that. I think it is going to be devastatingly high amounts of damage. The Deadeye also now increases the Golden Gun damage by another additional 30%. So yeah, run with your Golden Gun, use the Deadeye perk, and you are going to be doing an insane amount of damage. I think that is a fantastic change, honestly. With your throwing knives, the base damage is reduced by 10%. I guess they were, they feared against some of the lower armored guardians if you had the incendiary blade on there, which gives you a little bit of burn damage. If you threw and got a headshot with your throwing knife, and the burn would actually finish them off. So with one throwing knife, you were able to one-shot people. I think they felt that was a little bit too unfair. They decided to bring that damage down a little bit, so you'll severely weaken them, but you won't quite one-shot them with a throwing knife to the head anymore. The Circle of Life modified functionality. Precision kills with a throwing knife now reduce the cooldown of the Golden Gun. What it used to do is extend the duration of your Golden Gun if you got a throwing knife kill. It was useless. No one ever used that. I know I didn't, and I never saw anyone else doing it either. But now it makes it at least a little bit useful if you have that equipped. Any throwing knife kill is going to reduce the cooldown of your Golden Gun, letting you get more supers. I think that is a much better option there. The Circle of Life no longer extends the duration of Golden Gun. Like I said, it was a useless perk. Nobody was using it. And one thing that they did do, though, is they took the +1 armor removed that it did give you off of that Circle of Life. As far as the passive abilities, the Scavenger perk, this is an interesting one as well. So now Scavenger increases the amount of grenade and melee energy awarded by 33%. That ought to be pretty fun. You do not get a chance to pick up ammo that often, in Crucible, but when you do, if you have Scavenger equipped, it is going to be a much bigger boost to that, grenade and melee energy that you get from it. The Chain of Woe now gives you +1 recovery. Didn't used to, and now it will. Over the Horizon had the +1 recovery removed. So just a little bit of balances. They buff a couple things and they nerf a couple of things, trying to keep it as balanced as possible. Moving on to our next page. Okay, starting off with the Blade Dancer grenades. The skip grenade tracking time was reduced from 8 seconds to 12 seconds, and the detonation damage is reduced by 13%. In my opinion, this may actually kill using skip grenades. I used to enjoy using them. They were fun. I got a lot of kills with them, but now that they've reduced that tracking time down by 25%, and the detonation damage has also gone down 13%, I just think there's going to be better options out there for you to use instead of the skip grenade. I'm going to play test it to see, but I just have a feeling I'm not going to like using my skip grenades as much in PvP anymore. As far as your double jump, the blink now incurs a -1 recovery penalty. Now this applies to both your Blade Dancers as well as your Warlocks with their blink. This is going to make it really difficult for you to have your weapons ready to get that blink shotgun kill, or to get any type of a weapon kill when you're coming out of blink. I have a feeling you may actually blink and not be able to ready your weapon until you're back on the ground, which is going to completely negate a lot of what a lot of people like to use blink for. It already got nerfed during the last update, and I thought that put it at a really nice place with another -1 recovery penalty. It's going to be tough. I may not use blink anymore, honestly. I just might go with the increased control to get the extra speed while I'm in the air. But I'm going to have to play test it and see what I think about it. Moving on to your super, your Arc Blade, changed to be less about repeatedly swinging and more about decisive strikes with additional effectiveness. Now what they mean by that, they kind of go into it here. The base duration is increased by 2 seconds, so your Arc Blade will last a little bit longer now. The hit detection test range increased by 0.5 meters. So with your arc blade, you'll be able to actually hit people from a little bit further away. Your damage is also increased by 30% against AI combatants, which is nice. An additional 0.8 second cooldown between the arc blade swings while airborne, so you won't be able to repeatedly spam your arc blade in the air as quick as you were to close the gap and cover such a large amount of distance. Arc blade, I think, it was designed to be a very potent up-close melee ability. They never wanted it to be used to be able to traverse the map as quickly as people used to be doing. And that's what these next two, notes are about. Your energy cost per swing is now increased by 20%. So if you're just using Arc Blade to jump through the air and swing to get yourself to close the gap quickly, and you're swinging wildly, it is going to drain your super very quickly. However, to balance that out, the energy cost on a hit is decreased by 20%. So as long as you pick your spots on when you actually swing and you're, making each swing count with your hits, it is going to actually give you quite a few more swings during your Arc Blade. But if you're someone who likes to use it to close the gap or, traverse a large amount of distance quickly, it's going to hurt you quite a bit. It's just not going to be as effective. That way your super will run out before you really intended it to. Your Vanish ability now causes the player to vanish on cast in addition to its normal functionality. I think this is a great addition. I think it's always the way it really was intended. You use the Vanish, go invisible instantly instead of waiting for the full animation and everything before it goes through. Your Showstopper damage radius is now extended by 1 meter. Perfect. So if you have the Showstopper ability equipped on your Arc Blade, you will now be able to hit people from further away. I thought it was a really tight, window for you to hit people anyway. So extending that out a little bit, I believe that is a good change for the hunters. Your melee ability on your Blink Strike. Your lunge distance is decreased by 0.4 meters. You won't be able to hit people quite as far, and it's going to bring that melee more in tune to the range of other classes' melees. It won't feel like you can lunge quite as far. Well, let's not talk about the Warlock's melee, because that's already a ridiculous distance. But with all the other melees, it kind of brings it in tune with that. The valid backstab angle is reduced by 30 degrees. I'm sad to see this happen, but it needed to happen because there were too many people just getting front, Blink Strike and it counting as a one-shot kill because it procced on a backstab, even though they were nowhere near behind them. It had to be frustrating for everybody who was at the losing end of that. I think that is a change that needed to happen, honestly. I don't like it, but it needed to happen. Your Escape Artist. Invisibility effect is delayed by 0.5 seconds. So, you go ahead and Blink Strike somebody, it's going to take a half second before you actually go invisible. By then, you probably already have swung a second time. I don't know. I don't think that one needed to be messed with at all, but there it is. Fast Twitch is recharge is now reduced by 20%. So if you've got the Fast Twitch on there, you're going to get that Blink Strike back noticeably quicker than you used to. As far as your passives, your Encore, this is really interesting here. So killing an enemy with Arc Blade, when you have the Encore perk on, now extends its duration and grants a 150% increase to Arc Blade damage for a short time. This, I have a feeling, can be used in a lot of really creative and fun ways, especially in PvE. But even PvP, if you go on a rampage, you are going to, be able to chop down people left and right. I don't care if they're in supers or what. You already have that increase of 50%, but if you've got Encore after you kill the first guy, you now have another additional 150% damage. That's going to be really awesome. Imagine using that even with Showstopper and you get a couple of kills. There's a lot of cool things that can probably be done with this, and it's an interesting change. I want to mess around with it before I can, really give a final verdict on what I think about that one. Okay, now we move on to the meat of it, and what a lot of people are complaining about are the changes to the Nightstalker. Now, the Nightstalker is my main class. It's what I usually choose to play. I'm the most comfortable with it. It's the one I've, grown to love the most. And I'm dying a little inside, I won't lie. They have really hurt the Nightstalker. All right, let's get into it. So, with the grenades, Your spike grenade damage impulses per second is reduced from 5 to 10. So similar to the Titan's grenade that they changed. So they are going to increase the damage per tick that the spike grenade does by 100%, but it's going to be done over half of the time. So instead of 10 seconds, it's only going to last for 5 seconds, but each second it's going to do twice as much damage. I think that is a good change. I might be able to use a spike grenade now. Before it did too little damage. People would get hit by it once or twice and could get out of the way and they wouldn't die. Now if they get hit a couple times with it, it may actually kill them before they have time to react. So I think this is a good change, and it very well may make the spike grenade a viable option. Moving on to the Shadow Shot. Now applies a suppression effect on impact. Hallelujah, Bungie. Thank you so much. I am very glad to see this. It was really frustrating when I would hit people with my Shadow Shot and then still die from their super, and then they get suppressed like a half second later, whatever that delay was. Now they will be suppressed and pulled out of their supers immediately on impact. I think that's the way that this was always designed to be. I'm really glad to see that change. With the smoke, one of the main components of the Wombo combo, it's been hit pretty hard. Let's take a look at it. Changed to be less frustrating to play against in PvP, but more effective in PvE. So, the impact damage is increased by 34%. So if you're accurate with your smoke and you tag somebody with it, it is going to hit like a truck. It is going to really hurt them. However, the impact suppression and damage over time duration is reduced by 1 second. Okay, I'll take that trade-off. I get more damage if I hit them with it, but the overall smoke effect lasts for 1 second longer. I'm not crying about that too much. The jump suppression removed from the initial impact status effect, which means now if people get trapped in your smoke, they're not helpless and die to your grenade while they're stuck in it. They can actually just jump out of that smoke ability. It is going to make Wombo combo far less likely for you to be able to pull off, because as soon as they get hit with smoke, they're going to be able to jump out of it. But on the other hand, since if you hit somebody with smoke, they know they can jump. They're probably going to jump out of there. You can be prepared for that and have your scope zoomed in on them, waiting for them to jump up out of that smoke and just pick them off while they're vulnerable in the air. So while you won't be able to Wombo combo as effectively, you still may be able to use this pretty effectively to get kills with your other weapons when they go to jump out of your smoke. Let's see, upgraded, the smoke cloud duration is increased by 1 second. So the smoke cloud lasts longer, but the suppression of effect of it lasts shorter. So, okay. That's kind of an interesting, trade-off. I think they could have left both of those alone. It would have been just fine. The jump suppression removed from the cloud status effect. Yeah, that's, kind of what we were just talking about. People will now be able to jump out of there. Your vanish in smoke plus 1 agility has been removed. So it's not going to make you faster when you decide to use that vanish in smoke. And the snare cloud duration is increased by another additional second. So it looks like they're wanting you to use, snare a little bit more often now to kind of be really sneaky with it. I haven't messed around with snare that much, honestly, but I have a feeling, if you used it, you could start to build like a true hunter, someone who is stalking their prey, waiting for them to fall into the trap. So that might be something I mess around with and play with and see how I like it as well. As far as your passives, your Courage of the Pack now increases recovery, armor, and agility by 2 per stack. That is a big buff to Courage of the Pack. And now the Courage of the Pack can now stack up to 3 times. So that is a pretty welcome change. It may actually, make Courage of the Pack be a much more viable option to run. Okay, so Lockdown now increases the smoke duration by 2 seconds, plus 2 additional seconds if you have the snare upgrade. So the Lockdown is going to be a little bit way that you can combat, the overall, smoke being a little weaker from being able to, escape out of it. You can now make it last considerably longer than it used to. Predator now reduces the cooldown of the Shadow Shot ability. Very interesting change to Predator. It'll allow you to get your super much more quickly now. Kind of cool, because I never really used Predator. I use Lockdown all the time, but, I didn't use Predator much. That might allow me to do so. Now, this is the big one, boys and girls. This is the one what everyone is crying about right now. especially when it comes to the hunters, more specifically to your Nightstalker, is Shade Step has now been moved to a single dodge over a 3-second cooldown. It used to be 2 dodges over a 3-second cooldown, so you can literally Shade Step half as much as you used to now. I get it. I honestly do. It had to be frustrating as hell for people to play against it. People who are really good with Shade Step almost seemed invincible on how they could maneuver around the battlefield and pick you off as soon as they got out of their Shade Step and you hadn't quite focused back on them. I get it. I was one of those people that really liked to use this ability, so this hurts me deep down into my soul. I would use it to peek around corners. You know, I could Shade Step into an alleyway and Shade Step back to see what was going on. You know, all that means really is you're going to have to, you know, plan your Shade Steps a little bit more in advance. Be a little bit more deliberate with them. You can't just spam your Shade Step, you know, and get yourself in and out of situations that, you know, you normally should have died. It's gotten me out of those type of situations many a times. And I'm a little sad to see it reduced to this. I thought it was a skill that, you know, really made the Nightstalker, you know, extremely unique and viable. And it was because of my Wombo combo and my Shade Step ability that gave me such a strong neutral game, the reason why I ran my Nightstalker. Now that they've weakened both of those considerably, I don't know. I might just start maining other classes just to see how I like them. Doesn't mean I'm not going to completely give up on my Nightstalker. I don't think that they are dead. They're just going to have to be different tactics used in them now. So this is starting to run a little long. How about a little intermission? I sincerely apologize for that, and I may never do anything like that again. Or maybe I will. You'll just have to wait and see. Alright, let's get back to it, shall we? So, now we're going to move on to the Warlock, the Sunsinger. Let's start off with you, the grenades. Your Firebolt grenade increased arming time by 0.2 seconds, and Firebolt decreased victim search radius by 1 meter. So your Firebolts are not going to be as auto-target as they used to be, and there's going to be a slight delay to allow people that little bit of time to get out of the way. They're also going to have to land closer to their targets, 1 meter closer. It's actually a pretty significant distance in order for it to hit them. Your Melee Scorch Flame Shield is a 0.3 second delay added before the Overshield becomes activated. That's an interesting little delay that they've added. I think that they just believed with that Flame Shield it made it impossible to win a melee contest, you know, against a Sunsinger who had it. Maybe they think in that 0.3 seconds you can get your second hit in there before they actually get that shield. I don't know, but it is an interesting change. Now what all the Warlocks are crying about, the Viking Funeral no longer extends the duration of the Ignite effects. And I'm sorry, but this had to happen. Everyone was amazed that they did not do something like this during the last update, but they have now. Viking Funeral now weakens the target affected with the Ignite effects, causing them to take 5% more damage over time over all sources, and it stacks up to 3 times. This is going to make it really interesting to be able to use in PvE, and kind of like that Melting Point ability that they have with the Titans. It's going to allow your grenades to hit your targets, bosses and stuff, and make it to where they start taking more damage. Very cool change indeed. Moving on, we have the Voidwalker. So as I said before, your Blink ability now incurs a -1 recovery penalty, just like it does with the Blade Dancers. The Super, the Nova Bomb, the base damage has been increased by 50%, an additional 50% against the AI combatants. Like I said, all the Supers just seem to be getting that extra 50 and 50 or 50 and 30 buff against the AI. The Lance ability now increases the Nova Bomb damage by another additional 25%. So, you know, if you want to cross-map those bosses, you know, with your Nova Bomb, it's going to hurt them a lot more. Okay, that covers it for all the class-specific ones. For the rest of these, I'm going to move through quite a bit more quickly because this video is already running quite a bit longer than I wanted to. So, starting off with your weapons. General fixed an issue where the Year 2 version of the Thunderlord was not available in some players in the kiosk. Fixed an issue to incorrect UI bars were displayed on the Red Spectre. Fixed an issue where the exotic machine gun abilities were ignored the base stats for the recoil, aka your Thunderlord and your super good advice, okay? So they fixed those little mess-ups that were there. Fixed an issue where Defiance of Yasmin did not have the adjusted zoom for sniper rifles introduced in the 2.2 patch, the 5x zoom, and increased the inventory stat by 10. So it's not going to have as short of a zoom. It's going to, you know, a lot of people went to use that when they nerfed the zoom of the other sniper rifles. They've now kind of moved Defiance of Yasmin more into that category as well. The auto rifles reduce the damage of your high rate of auto fires by 6%, aka the Doctrine of Passing. Yes, so the Doctrine can still melt, and it has for a long time. It's been the go-to weapon for most trials people that are, you know, competitive. It is going to do a lot less damage. Now, that 6% doesn't sound like much, but it adds up a lot over all those bullets. So you'll still be able to melt people with the Doctrine, just not quite as quickly, and it's going to allow other you know, primary weapons to kind of keep pace with it, I believe. Hand cannons increase the initial accuracy and decrease the accuracy drop for low-range hand cannons. This is really nice because it used to be if you had a hand cannon that did not have rifle barrel or something else to really extend the range, it was almost useless. So the initial accuracy and the accuracy drop-off improvements are a big, big help. You're going to be much more consistent and smooth with your shots. Now you're going to find that you're not getting as many phantom bullets. Made damage fall off curves steeper to better coincide with the intended effective range of hand cannons. So while they might be accurate from a little bit further range now, the damage fall off is going to be a little bit more severe. You are going to have to make sure you keep them in that, you know, close to medium range. Otherwise, you're just not gonna. You'll be flicking, you know, acorns at them. It's not going to hurt them that much. Small increase to the PvE damage to all hand cannons. So they're just going to want to make hand cannons more usable in PvE again. I think that's great. I miss the days when I used to run around and destroy everything with my Fatebringer, you know? Ammo. It now takes less time for your ghost to automatically grab ammo for you when you're running low on ammo. Thank you. You used to have to wait way too long. Now you're going to be able to get that ammo back more quickly, and I love that change. Your exotics. There is a slight reduction to the Hawk Moon stability of a point, -5 stability. That had to happen with the increase on the initial accuracy of hand cannons. They had to, target the Hawk Moon specifically, although I've still play tested it, and it is still a beast. Even more so now, because the hits just feel much crisper now that they've increased that initial accuracy. Fantastic still, even with that slight little nerf. So, slight reduction to counterbalance effectiveness reduces 80% of the recoil angle instead of 90%. So, it's not a huge drop. It takes 10% away from its effectiveness. It's still going to be the most desirable perk to have on those high rate of fire weapons, especially the high rate of fire auto rifles. It's just not going to be as effective as it was, but it's still going to be really, really desirable. The Twilight Garrison. Move tactical air support ability to a single dodge on a 3-second cooldown. Basically, they did the same thing to this that they did with the Shade Step for the Hunter. Titans are not going to be quite as impossible to target while they're airborne because they're only going to be able to use that dodge ability one time on a 3-second cooldown, so they won't have the 2 times like they used to. Moving on to some of the mission changes. So, the alternate ending to the Paradox can now be completed at any time by selecting it from the director on the heroic difficulty. The alternate ending to Lost in Light can now be completed at any time by selecting it on the heroic difficulty. And the Firewall mission will now be available as soon as the player has turned in the required items. So those special missions you had to wait to be able to get your hands on those certain exotic weapons, now you can do them anytime. You don't have to wait for them to become, the daily heroic or the weekly heroic or whatever. They will always be available for you to get your hands on them. That is a really cool change. I got all my stuff done with those weapons and those missions early on, but I know a lot of people that, have been waiting forever for it. It just hasn't come. So good for you, Bungie, on listening to what people wanted. Okay, changes to the Prison of Elders. The level 41 Prison of Elders Arena Activity tooltip now properly indicates remaining weekly Legendary Mark rewards. These weekly Legendary Mark rewards are shared with the weekly Heroic Strike playlist, so where you can earn them 3 times. And maybe earned from either activity. So you won't be able to do 3 from the level 41 and 3 from the Heroic Strike playlist. But, you know, if you did 1 of each of those, and then you'd only need to do 1 more of either of the 2 of those to get your full 30 marks from it. Kind of an interesting change right there. The Challenge of Elder. Varix grows impatient. Point deduction now grows even more severe the longer that you are in a given section. So the way that they calculate it is the point deduction equals 50 times the number of times he has grown impatient. So that can grow quite considerably if you let it go for too long. In the Crucible, all weekly rotating activities in the Crucible now feature weekly rewards. Fantastic, more loot for us. Fixed an issue where the Trials of Osiris boon icons from the House of Wolves persisted after deleting the Trials passage. Yeah, that was a weird thing that would show up sometimes. And are you ready for some chroma? There are now new chroma colors have been added. Orange, magenta, and green. Want to get some of that green chroma to go with my red. I think I would look really nice. A little Christmas color action going on. And they have a chance to be found in the Sterling Treasure Chest or from dismantling the Spectar gear sets. Just the same as the way all your other chroma gear was. Fixed an issue where the daily Heroic Strike missions that were in the House of Wolves were not properly awarding legendary marks. Okay. Fixed an issue where the Road Untraveled ship would be unattainable from the future War Cult faction packages under certain circumstances. Curious what those were. Fixed an issue where the Kicks Dance emote was not displaying proper announcement in the text. Okay, if you felt you had to take time to do that. Fixed an issue where Varix would not sell the Dreadfang sword if the player obtained and dismantled the sword on all characters. Okay, that's an interesting one. I didn't know that bug was there. And then in the UI, fixed an issue where equipping the Armor of Vows, the new Monarchy ship, caused a false postmaster notification. And now your friends are now displayed in the director when hovering over activities that they are currently playing in. That has been something that people have been wanting to see for a long time. So again, thank you Bungie for putting that in there. It's going to make a lot of people happy. Alright guys, so that's going to do it. Thank you if you stuck around to the end. I know this was a long video, but there was a lot of stuff to go over, and I wanted to give my opinion on everything about it. So if you made it this far, my hat is off to you. Thank you so much. Now I ask you guys to tell me what you think of these new updates that are going on, or that just happened. Do you think certain classes are dead? Do you think the Hunter is going to be unusable? Let me know in the comment section down below. Me personally, I think the Hunter is still very usable, but we're just going to have to use it in different ways now. The same thing happened, when they nerfed the initial Titan hammers that were unstoppable, and then they nerfed them into the ground to where they were barely usable, and everyone said, oh, the Titans are completely dead, you'll never be able to use them again. No, you still could. You just had to adjust. I won't be playing as much Nightstalker, though. With all the nerfs that have happened to it, I'm still going to play it sometimes, but I'm going to start, exploring my options and playing a few of the other subclasses a little bit more often and maybe find a new favorite. So, anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. It's gone on too long as it is. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck around to the end, again, my hat is off to you because this was a long video. As always, this is LVnative. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in the next one. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please go ahead and smack that like button and leave a comment in the section down below. Also, if this is your first time to this channel, please do not hesitate to subscribe for more great videos like this in the future. As always, this is LVnative. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in the next one.